I learned at a very young age that you can't change somebody else who doesn't want to change. And the same thing goes for us. On a manifestation front, I've been way more interested in intentions. And I see way more success with that than I think resolving to fill in the blank at the new year. From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Happy 2024. Whew, a new year ahead of us. One strong ping I had before leaving 2023 and entering 2024, and this was like maybe a couple weeks into December or a week or into December, I was like, the pressure for 2024 to just have changed our whole life and everyone to be committing to the new routines and way of living is going to feel like a lot. And I think people need a bit more ease and compassion entering in the new year. And I know we have this long history of setting New Year's resolutions, but if there's anything that I've learned through the manifestation work is just blanketly setting a resolution without really understanding why we want what we want, understanding the subconscious beliefs about if we even think it's possible for us, or if we're subconsciously pushing it away because we think it's not safe to have it. And then that showing up in our actions, which is not following through with our New Year's resolutions. So I have done away with resolutions, and I always start my year with a manifestation list. And looking into studies, a lot of them show that only 9% of people who set resolutions actually achieve them, 9%. And last year, when we surveyed our members, 98.3% of the members who completed the survey said that they manifested their list within 6 months. 98.3% versus 9%. And I think it's because manifestation takes it so much deeper. And on today's episode, we're going to really talk about why that is, what is standing in your way, how to really commit to a practice if you've fallen off the challenge, if you've fallen off your habits already in this new year, how can you commit to them for the year ahead and make them more of a lifestyle shift in those mini micro moments, how we can enter this year with a little bit more ease, a bit more self-compassion, a bit more self-worth. And right now we have our big manifestation challenge going on where we walk you through how to manifest step by step using all of the tools that are going to help you have lasting results and manifest everything you desire in 2024. And just for some expansion for you all, a lot of our members who kicked off the challenge with us back in November when we started and have followed through have been manifesting the craziest stuff, the most wild kismet DMs and testimonials I'm getting from you all. In fact, here's one now.
Hello. So I just wanted to share my manifestations since doing the manifestation challenge. Now, this is probably my second manifestation challenge, and this has been so unbelievable. Like the things that have come through, probably one of my biggest manifestations was attending the LA event on the TBM speaking tour. And I had to step through a lot of security, safety concerns that I had. I had to unblock a lot of conditioning, but it was so worth it. And I came through that and have since manifested 3 job offers after writing very, very quickly on my list that I was calling in a new career opportunity. Had 3 offers the week I got back from LA. Also have manifested cash, which has constantly eluded me my entire life after a childhood experience. So I wrote cash on my list and then crossed it off. And then lo and behold, I've just been manifesting cash, whether it's finding cash or it's been $1,000 gifted to me. So it has been such an epic experience. I keep finding, I'm doing the unblocked as I go shopping, and I end up finding deals all the time. So anyway, I just want to say thank you so much.
And now a word from our partners.
So here at TBM, we are always looking for what is the natural, clean way to approach holistic living, mind, body, and soul from the inside out. And one thing recently I was having trouble with is I had high levels of stress, which was causing inflammation, and my metabolism was running way slower than it used to. So I was looking for something that could really help with inflammation, fortify gut health, all of those things. And I am so excited to announce our brand new sponsor. I am obsessed with their product. It has been, oh my gosh, my saving grace for all of this, Armra Colostrum. If you haven't heard of colostrum, it is literally the first piece of nutrition that we receive when we are born. It contains all of our essential nutrients that our bodies need in order to thrive. And Armra created a proprietary blend of bovine colostrum that harnesses over 400 living bioactive nutrients that will rebuild the barriers of your body and fuel your cellular health. It strengthens your immunity, ignites your metabolism, helps with anti-inflammation, fortifies your gut health, activates hair growth, skin radiance, helps your fitness performance, helps with energy, recovery. It is truly the most magical superfood ever. And Armra's colostrum is fully sustainably sourced with colostrum from grass-fed cows at their co-op dairy farm. They only use the surplus supply of colostrum after all of the cows are fully fed, so it is really animal friendly. And they use cold chain biopotent technology, which helps the process of preserving the integrity of all the bioactive nutrients in the colostrum, which also removes the casein and fat. So if you have a lactose allergy, which I honestly do, I usually have to take a lactate pill anytime I have real cheese. This should not bother your stomach. Obviously test it. Each case is individual, but I am someone who gets so bloated from any dairy products out there, and this actually helps prevent against that. My inflammation and bloating, specifically around my stomach and face, has gone down significantly. My nails and hair have been growing like wildfire. It gives me more energy. And honestly, at times that I might be eating things that are outside the norm or maybe have a little bit more processing in them, if I take some of the Armra before, it actually helps protect my gut so much better. It is like an extra line of defense. It also protects your immune system stronger than the flu vaccine. You should see the studies on this. It's absolutely insane. So highly recommend it. Check it out online. If you are interested in trying some, we have a special offer for you guys. You can receive 15% off your first order. Go to tryarmra.com/TBM. Again, that is tryarmra.com/TBM. And enter the code TBM, all caps, to get 15% off your first order.
All right, on to the episode.
I wanted to kick off this episode by really highlighting a little bit of the psychology behind the manifestation work and why the TBM method is more effective than setting resolutions. So for starters, resolutions often perpetuate unrealistic goals. They're like, I'm going to work out every single day this week, or I'm going to overhaul my whole lifestyle and it's going to be different by the end of the month, or I'm going to give this up. It's very black and white, all or nothing. It's going from 0 to 100. However, the manifestation method has you get clear on what is possible for you in the next 6 to 9 months. 6 to 9 months. We even extend it 6 to 12 months. That's why we have a year-long membership. You don't have to fix everything, change everything, manifest everything next month. You have the whole year to pull apart, to change, to adapt. You're creating new neural pathways of high self-worth, abundance, and everything that you want out of life. So why would you give yourself such a short runway? It didn't take that long to get those limiting beliefs in there. So give yourself some time, some ease, and some compassion around how you're going to achieve your goals for the next year. 2, resolutions often root down to what we think we need to do, what we think we should do to fit into different societal expectations, pressures, timing. Whereas the manifestation work is connecting you with your true soul, authentic desires. What do you want from your soul? Not what you think you should do or need to do to be loved, but what you actually truly want. It is going to make the entire experience so much more fulfilling. 3, resolutions often collapse when you face your self-doubt, your fear, or your self-sabotage. When you're working with the TBM method, you are getting to your subconscious limiting beliefs that are standing in your way. I talked about this in the intro. These are the things that it's your fear of success, your fear of failure, your fear of being seen, fear of putting yourself out there. All of those fears are coming in, running the show, creating self-sabotage, self-doubt, and not allowing you to take the aligned action you need to take that will actually connect you with what you want. When we can address it at a subconscious level, that's when we can really make lasting change. Which leads me to the next point. Using the TBM manifestation method, we move to aligned action. What are the small steps that you can take through fear that will bring you closer to what you want? It's not a grandiose idea. It's not a lack of a roadmap or a plan. It's what is the one small step I can face today that will get me closer to where I want in the next 6 months to a year. And finally, with resolutions, we often have to hold ourselves accountable. When you are part of the TBM community, you are listening to the podcast with hundreds of thousands of people who are tuning in and walking with you in this self-discovery process. You have a community group. You can ask a friend to be your accountability buddy or your manifestation bestie. You have check-in calls with Lacey and I. There are so many ways to touch base and to cover what's going on with your process. It is baked into our process to find ways of accountability with each other. You can even check off in our app how many times you've done the deep imaginings so you can start tracking things. Having some form of accountability is going to set you up for success in the new year. So the theme of today is really diving into resolutions. We typically see the resolutions as that pesky list of items you're crafting at the top of the new year to start on a blank slate and attempt to force yourself brand new habits where you're going to transform your whole mind, body, and soul. And actually, I was doing a bit of research into it, and apparently humans have been setting New Year's resolutions for over 4,000 years. So it's deeply ingrained in our bodies that at the time of a year change and the seasons changing and all of that, that we sort of are setting our intentions of what's to come. But studies show that, 60% of us that make New Year's resolutions, only 8% of us actually achieve them. So I think the question on a lot of people's mind is, why are we so bad at keeping resolutions? And also a second part to that question is how can we reframe resolutions? How do we understand resolutions through manifestation? Because that's setting an intention and a goal to shift our life. And how can we be more successful with them? So Lacey, kick us off the manifestation front too.
Yeah, because I'm way more curious to hear, Dr. Tara, what you have to say, just even on an epigenetic level with that. Geez, 4,000 years. It's interesting. Always from the beginning, literally, I think I started this post around this time 4 years ago, where I would always shift this community from resolve to intentions. Because to me, resolving to do something, and that's where I think Dr. Tara will be way more key at us understanding why we fail at it so often. I learned at a very young age that you can't change somebody else who doesn't want to change. And the same thing goes for us. When we have this arbitrary marker of a year where we're like, we're going to drop the weight, stop the smoking, do the whatever, like whatever the things are, it's kind of a spiritual bypass notion in the sense that we're just going to stop arbitrarily on this date rather than doing the deeper work of why do we do those things? Why do we numb? Why do we, and I would say falling under numbing, like we've talked about in other podcast episodes, but the eating, the overeating, the emotional eating and the smoking and the whatever and, the habits. So for me, on a manifestation front, I've been way more interested in intentions, calling in things around this time. So that's where I'm at with everything, is much more about doing the heavy lifting of what's in our way, where are we not expanded, where are we not passing tests, upon calling in something. And I see way more success with that around this time. And then, there's a lot more fruition from that we can garner than I think resolving to fill in the blank at the new year. So I'll kick it over to you, Dr. Tar, because I'm so curious about the science of failure, what you think just on an epigenetic level that we've been doing that for so long, and your general thoughts.
Yeah, I love the idea that you picked up on that. We've been doing it for 4,000 years. And I suspect that Jessica's statistic of the percentage of success hasn't changed much in 4,000 years. So expectation is a really interesting thing. We've spoken quite recently about boundaries, but all of the things that really prime our neural pathways in childhood are boundaries, expectations, values, roles, secrets, identity, like who we identify with, or who people, put upon us that you're just like that person. And so the thing about resolutions is not just the expectations that you have for yourself or expectations that society or your family may have for you, but it's this whole epigenetic thing of this pressure of choosing something, a big goal. And that's where the problem starts. The major reason that resolutions fail is because the resolution itself was too big. And with neuroplasticity, I'm always saying it's about repetition and emotional intensity. And so you picked up on both of those in an energetics way, which is the emotional intensity part is, do you really want to do this? And if that desire and intention isn't really intrinsic in you, then the motivation to sustain the behavior that you have to do or not do to achieve your resolution just won't be there. And when Jessica said we're going to speak about resolutions, the first thought that came into my mind was, I've been working on micro habits and quarterly resolutions for so long now that I don't have any New Year's resolutions. And that really struck me that was the innate thought that came up. And obviously that's centered around the repetition piece, which is that it should be small things that you can do every day that then accumulate into a habit. That is the natural neural pathway for your brain. So, and the year that I decided to go quarterly, I picked sort of 12 small things and I did 2 to 4 things per quarter. At the end of the first quarter, I thought, well, the 10,000 steps and the drinking that much water, I don't even think about those things now. So that's done. I'll move on to the next 2.
And I just want to point out one thing too, like what I'm really kind of getting from that as well, Dr. Tara, is that we have these subconscious, perhaps oftentimes limiting beliefs that are rooted deep within us. So we might want to exercise and lose the weight consciously. That's a very common resolution for a lot of people. But if we really get to the core of it, what we want is maybe it's a feeling of recognition. Maybe it's a physical goal, like we want to lift a certain amount of weight. The root reason behind it is very important. And if that root reason is not aligned with our subconscious beliefs, what we picked up through childhood, through programming, then we're not going to succeed at it. But if we look at resolutions as habit changing, and then we, through emotional intensity, repetition, continually form a new neural pathway to replace that limiting one, we can now achieve our resolution because that limiting belief is no longer the primary thought pattern.
And that you're also saying micro, so that it's, approachable. It's not way too lofty.
I really want to bring together what you've both said and, go back to what Jessica was saying about the real reason behind why you want to do what you want to do. And, often with weight loss, it's if I'm slimmer, I'll have much more confidence and then I'll meet an amazing partner. So actually the things you need to be looking at are your confidence and the fact that you want to be in a relationship. And so I genuinely believe that if you come up with a resolution and you say, okay, I'll start that on the 1st of January, and this is going back to what you were saying, Lacey, then that actual motivation isn't there. Because if you had, the right amount of motivation, you start today.
Agreed.
So actually, committing to something doable, like the daily reprogramming, that itself will induce neuroplasticity in your brain because you're forming a habit, you're making a change, you're doing some regular work. And therefore, any other bigger goals that you might have will be easier if you've done, let's say, 3 or 6 months of solid, if not every single day, at least most days of the week, of doing some kind of daily reprogramming exercise, then that itself is inducing plasticity, which will make it easier for you to do other things, which I think is a great bonus.
One thing that I was reading in James Clear, Atomic Habits, he did like all of the research on what people say is the best habits. And one thing that always has stuck out to me is this idea of habit stacking. Like if you're having such a hard time showing up to whatever that thing is, to schedule it in, really put it on the calendar and put it next to something that's already automatic. So let's say you brush your teeth, right when you hop out of bed without even thinking about it, put your DI practice right after that. So it's just a continuation of automatic habits to sneak in there and maintain in your routine.
There's another trick like that, actually, which I learned about more recently, which I think is called bundling, where you bundle something that you don't really enjoy to something that you do.
I was just thinking that while Jessica was speaking, I was like, that would actually be really successful for me.
And then Dr. Tara, you talk about this a lot in your book, which I absolutely love, but those sort of 4 pillars of, shifting your behavior through raised awareness, focused attention, deliberate practice, and accountability. So what are some examples of those 4 pillars? Like, what does it look like to have raised awareness? Would that be perhaps recognizing that you want to have this shift and this goal change? Walk us through some examples for all of those.
So let's say I want to lose 10 pounds is the goal. So surfacing from your non-conscious to your conscious, something like, I think I have 3 meals a day, but actually I snack a lot more than I realized, is important, right? So one way to do that is to keep a food diary for a week. When I do that, which I do about once a year, it's very interesting how it's different to what you perceive just in your mind. So, raising awareness is kind of taking the goal that you think you want and then asking yourself why you're not achieving it. And, like with all of our work, what's the subconscious belief that's underneath the thought pattern? So with this, it's like, what's the thing that I'm not realizing that's preventing me from achieving that goal? And again, our work or journaling or seeing a coach or a therapist can help to surface some of those things. Then the focused attention is, so without making any changes, depending on what it is, I usually say a month because, usually working with quite transformative things, just notice every time you snack when you were convinced that you only have your 3 meals a day. Or, notice what food choices you make if you're tired or if you're upset. And then the next stage is the deliberate practice. So that is only having the 3 meals, using a smaller plate so that you're having smaller portions, balancing the protein, fat, and carbohydrate, whatever it is. And then the accountability is having someone or some form of technology to demonstrate to yourself more objectively than subjectively that you are actually doing the things that you've committed to doing and that's showing progress towards the goal that you want.
I think that's so helpful. It obviously ties into so much of the manifestation work. Lacey, could you talk a little bit about how we kind of integrate that and how we could potentially frame this work for the listeners too?
Well, to me, it's like we've created, with the help of Dr. Tara, so many of those steps already within the daily practice. So say somebody is just going through how to manifest or revisiting it. There's a lot actually that really ties into everything we've been talking about. You're casting your list, which is an intention, something you're calling in. It teaches you to call micro, right? Because just like habits and goals, if you're manifestation is far beyond your expanded belief, there's no space for it. It's always fine to put those on your list, but it's not realistic that those will come quickly if you're not expanded. So it's really interesting, even just going through that and having that model. And then when you do get into the reprogramming bit, it's so important to look. And I don't know if this would classify under the raised awareness, but whether you're doing inner child shadow or getting into the daily practice, you're really starting to uncover what's blocking you from receiving that intention or that manifestation. The things that are really at the root of why it's not here or why you might be doing X, Y, and Z to sabotage it or push it away. And then it goes through the expansion process. So to me, there's a lot of integration of everything we're talking about, may it be a habit or you're calling in, something into your life that you want that's new, and actually having buildable steps that can have results, while kind of doing therapy and, creating new neural plasticity at the same time so it can be more effective. That's sort of my 2 cents on it. It seems really compatible.
Let's dive into some of those really core, getting to the reasons of why people are failing. And so I just jotted down a couple of different things, but I think it's interesting to go over so people might be able to be like, well, why am I really doing that? Or why can't I succeed at that goal? So a lot of it could be a perfectionist mentality, wanting to be that A+ student. How can that come in when we're trying to achieve goals? I sort of see it as like, you need to get everything done exactly the perfect way. Otherwise, it's like 100% or nothing.
That's definitely a huge reason why people fail. So, you make a resolution and it's either to not do something at all or regularly do something. Then so often, as soon as people make one mistake, they say, okay, well, that's it. I haven't met my resolution. So they give up completely. And for me, what happened a lot was when I was traveling a lot, jet lag would knock me off my usual gym schedule. I'd come back from somewhere, I'd be tired or just all over the place. And then it would be like 2 or 3 weeks since I last went to the gym or a yoga class. And starting again was hard. And so a lot of people fall at that hurdle. And I really learned from personal experience and shared this with as many people as I could. When you go off the regimen that you need to be on to, meet your goal, if you fail, don't completely give up. Just start again. Don't even waste time beating yourself up for why did I eat those snacks or not go for a hike at all this week. Just start again.
That's what I personally do as well. I learned that a long time ago, that it became more successful for me to just pick up where I left off. And that I learned was really powerful as somebody who's a recovering perfectionist, that it just gets me a lot further than throwing in the towel if it's not totally perfect.
And it doesn't need to be in the exact day or time or whatever it is as everyone else. It's the commitment to the change whenever you can get it in.
Yeah, and another really good way to surface your blockers is really asking yourself why you slipped behind. And, is it because work got in the way? Is it because life got in the way? None of those answers are bad. I always say, did you do what you said you would? And if not, why not? Because then you're still learning.
And I think that is such a key, important piece you just brought back around, because you really do. Like, if you're falling off, why? If you're doing X, Y, and Z, why? Knowing that bottom piece is what's going to really help the transition, having understanding around it.
Okay, so the sense of perfectionism that we were just talking about with Lacey and Dr. Tara can be also applied to doing the TBM self-work. If you have fallen off, and I know a lot of you likely have over the holidays, I've even fallen off my practice. It's not about, oh no, now I have to start back at the beginning again to get the whole experience out of it. If you've already started, just keep going. What is the very next step that you can take to continue on your practice? It doesn't need to look perfect. It can look messy and piecemeal, and you can do a DI here or a journal prompt here, but the point is to just keep coming back and try not to have a rigid mindset or shame yourself or think that you're doing it wrong. If you are showing up, there is no way you could be doing it wrong because you will learn something out of it every single time. And trust your own intuition. I saw a fantastic post the other day, which was if you only had 40% to give today and you gave 40%, that means you gave 100% of the energy you had to give that day. So think about each day. How much do you have to give to your own self-care practice? Give whatever you can give that day, and tomorrow it starts anew. And maybe you have 100% energy and you have an hour to dedicate. Amazing, give that hour. Or maybe you have 5 minutes the next day. Don't judge how much you can give each day because your energy is going to feel so different. Trust your intuition, trust what your body needs, trust the pace at which you go. And I just will keep reiterating, there is no wrong way to do the work. Speaking of manifestations, one major manifestation that has come through for me recently is Bon Charge's infrared PEMF mat. Their PEMF mat, which stands for Pulse Electromagnetic Field, is a magnetic energy mat that sends energy waves to work with your body's natural magnetic field and improve your overall well-being. Now, I originally heard of PEMF mats back in the day. I used the first one at Lacey's Forest Retreat House, and I kind of didn't really think it was going to do anything at first. And when I laid on this mat, I'm telling you, my whole body just relaxed. My nervous system relaxed, and I fully was able to calm down. Fast forward a few years later, one of our absolute favorite companies, Bon Charge, has launched their own PEMF mat, and it is fully loaded with all the best biohacking techniques you can imagine. So not only do they have multiple frequency settings, one for delta waves to improve deep sleep, one for grounding and earthing that is in the frequency of Schumann's resonance, which is the Earth's magnetic field frequency, one for alpha waves to increase calm creativity, one for beta waves for logical thinking, conscious thought, or meditation, and one that cycles through all four to really align all different parts of your body. But that's not all. They also have red, near infrared, and far infrared light wave frequencies. You've heard me talk about this before, but red light therapy can be so impactful for muscle soreness, tension, pain in the body, detoxification, and so many more things. It is also packed with tourmaline gemstones, germanium gemstones, and amethyst crystals, which all help to balance your mood, keep you calm, activate spiritual awareness, open intuition, and attract positive ions from your body to keep you in that balanced state. Like I said, this thing is fully loaded. So once we received it, we unloaded it into our living room, and it honestly hasn't left the floor because I find myself jumping on it multiple times a day. When I want to meditate before the start of my day, or when I'm needing to process and do a DI, it helps to take me deeper, calm my body, calm my nervous system. It is so good for meditation practices. It just helps you go a lot deeper. And when you are needing grounding breaks throughout the day, it is fantastic. So if you are interested in trying Bon Charge's new infrared PEMF mat, you can use the code MAGNETIC, that's all caps, MAGNETIC for 15% off. Again, that's magnetic, MAGNETIC for 15% off. Or you can go to boncharge.com/pages/magnetic and check out some of the other incredible biohacking low EMF products that Bon Charge has to offer. This is another really big one for people, which is they start to self-sabotage, which is truly rooted in sort of their fear of failure or even their fear of success. People don't recognize that it is rooted in fear. They're just like, I just can't seem to get this thing done. And if they really, looked at their behaviors, they might notice some self-sabotaging behaviors. Why are we so fearful of getting the things we want oftentimes?
Yeah, that's one I can never wrap my head around. What is the science on that and the research, Dr. Tara? Fear of success.
So it's much more popularly said that you throw into your shadow things about yourself that you're ashamed of, or that you don't like, or that you were, made to feel guilty about. But there's a huge population of people who have lowish self-esteem for whatever various reasons, which all of us can have at certain times of our life. And they actually throw the good things about them into their shadow because they can't accept a compliment. They don't believe that they deserve, the success that they are actually skillfully able to get. That's psychoanalysis, but it's related to that because our need to belong to a tribe is so strong. Sometimes, and I think more so for women than men, if you outshine people too much, you risk being excluded from the tribe. And that's really, really primal. So if you put those two things together, then either low self-esteem or a feeling that you might get excluded or become isolated because you've outshone your peers are two very, very, when I say basic, I mean primal reasons to not reach your potential.
If you are somebody who's going to have either a resolution or an intention, it's so important to understand that it should be micro, that you know the why beneath it, why you even have this thing that you no longer want in your habit library or something you desire to bring in to your life, the steps you need to take to actually achieve it. I mean, that's, I think, the real overarching thing here and why we see so much failure around A, when we hear, but I'm not manifesting, or B, that I just couldn't stick with my resolution.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit like tests. If you set a resolution and within a matter of weeks you're doing it like you've always done it your whole life, then you've got no blocks around that. But if you repeatedly fail the same New Year's resolution, and I know people who've said the same thing every year for 10 years, then there's some serious unblocking, probably child or shadow work to do.
So let's just kind of run through a checklist of like some ways we can start to spot that you might be in your own way. So one very obvious one, the same tests are repeating over and over again, or the same dynamic, person, energetic, keeps showing up, but your response to it is the same or it's not evolving. You might make excuses for why this dynamic is different or worth putting up with this time, but it's still not presenting as what you desire. You might be stuck in the fantasy of what could be versus what's actually presenting.
So big, the dream.
Yeah, like the dream that like, okay, well, maybe this time it'll be different, or this time this person will change, or this time this, job or whatever will be different when you're not looking at the facts of what's actually happening. You might be minimizing the impact that continuing to settle for this dynamic is. Basically, you're just saying like, oh yeah, I'll change that tomorrow. I'll change it tomorrow, not thinking that each day that you're saying tomorrow, you're missing out on opportunities now. And then really the truth of underneath all of it is deep down, you really know and want and deserve more, but you keep settling. You feel shame, you feel small about the situation. It's a test, but you keep running into the fire.
Exactly. First of all, actually, I shared this with Jessica last week, but with that said, there's my favorite Elizabeth Gilbert quote, and it's, I've never seen any life transformation that didn't begin with the person in question finally getting tired of their own bullshit. Mm-hmm. And I love that. But I think there's that paired with that compassionate inquiry of like, gosh, why can't I leave this relationship? Why do I keep putting on with this boss that I need to leave? Really compassionately going deeper with ourselves, I think can actually soften us to move forward versus if we're just bullying ourselves and shaming ourselves to leave a situation or change a dynamic, we don't. And there's layers to this, right? Like I think of just people being on that spectrum of some are more run anxious and some run more depressed. And I see a lot of times with my clients that run more anxious, like sometimes they're paralyzed in fear and don't move forward. But a lot of times, actually, they're the ones that their kind of high functioning anxiety gets them moving a lot quicker versus the ones that run more low. And a lot of those times, those people are they're just doing what they can do just to survive their day. And they don't have that capacity to, metabolize or have that mobilization energy to change. And a lot of people have very, honestly, high functioning depression where they're almost like, I'm thinking of Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore with that little gray cloud over their head, or it's called dysthymic depression, where it's this very low grade, long-term depression. And they really just thinking of the capacity to, how am I going to resource and change and all these other things? It's like they don't have the space for it. So sometimes it's like, okay, I'm tired of this bullshit, but what else is going on with me? Oh, I have low-grade depression and I'm just doing the best I can every day. So this test is overwhelming and I need to help resource my depression first. And when I do that, then I have the capacity to change and do what I know I need to do. So I think that's a big piece of it. I mean, I've seen that over and over and over again and over a decade of therapy, like just watching clients, once they get resourced for depression, boom, 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 they have the capacity to change.
I just wanted to jump in here really quick to really highlight what resourcing is. So for anyone that's new, maybe this is your first time listening with us, or you need a bit of a refresher. When we talk about resourcing our emotions, resourcing our nervous system, or Janelle talked about resourcing depression, it really means building up our window of tolerance through different coping skills when we are dysregulated. So how do we do this? Well, part of it is with using the calming deep imaginings, our reset DI, our magnetic self DI, our safe DI. How do we start to build that internal sense of safety within us? It could also look like breath work. It could also look like movement. It could also look like shaking or holding our body or going for a cold plunge or anything that is going to bring our nervous system back into regulation. So start thinking about some of the things that you can use to resource. We call it like a resourcing checklist. What are the things that you can go to when you feel dysregulated, and lean on those things instead of falling back into old self-sabotage or perfectionism tendencies.
There's so many people out there settling for unfulfilling relationships, or people who are stuck in toxic jobs, living in places and spaces that don't inspire them, and especially people who feel like they'll never be able to afford the things and the life that they truly desire. How do I know that? Because it was me before I discovered that manifestation is actually a totally viable, scientifically proven method of creating the life you want. I'm Lacey, I'm the founder of To Be Magnetic, and if you're not familiar with us, we at TBM offer workshops that teach you how to manifest literally everything, from love to money to career to beyond. Our courses are the most effective manifestation method on the market, and that's because of a secret that I discovered years ago about manifestation, which is you do not manifest from your thoughts. You manifest from your subconscious beliefs. So after decades of client research and input from leading doctors and therapists, we designed courses that help you rewire your subconscious mind to align with what you want to manifest. And the best part of all, for any skeptic out there, our work is completely scientifically proven to work. Just ask the tens of thousands of members inside our Pathway membership, which gives you unlimited access to all of our workshops, tools, and offerings that you'll use over the course of a year. This includes workshops on inner child, shadow, boundaries, love, money, the infamous ruts, and the horrible rock bottoms, and so much more. Okay, now back to the episode.
The key of this whole, getting out of your own way, what are those things that keep presenting? Because there is a big root. There's a big, we're manifesting from our subconscious belief. So what subconscious belief is projecting out that maybe you're not aware of and it needs more delicate looking at? One way I like to kind of phrase it or frame it is like, okay, if this is what's coming up for me again and again and again, what must I be believing about myself in order to be settling here?
Yes, you manifest what you believe you deserve on a subconscious level. So in order to even like have the test begin to be better than the time, you know what I mean? Because we all know, and the universe very much knows this, that they deserve their equal, but they cannot give it to this person until they unblock that belief that I don't deserve my equal that's as sparkly as I am, and until they start passing the tests and taking aligned action. And it really, really comes down to unblocking that belief as first. And then all of these tools that you're suggesting, Janelle, can really, really be beneficial.
And I think when you get to the root and you know it in your bones, that's when you can move forward. If you're unsure what your root is, it's really hard to especially leave an attachment. Really, really, really hard. So you have the space to do it once you actually go, okay, this is really about this.
When we talk about building our manifestation trust muscle, it is being able to also acknowledge the little wins where we did pass a test or we responded differently to a dynamic, acknowledging that, celebrating that. It is looking at those mini manifestations that came through, those kismet things that we didn't even have listed out, but it's the universe giving us those winks that we're in the right direction. When we can start seeing those opportunities as gifts from the universe, as co-creating with the universe, as dancing with the universe, then we are more primed for the other opportunities available to us to help expand, unblock, take aligned action, and allow our manifestation to come in. So many times when people have written in and said like, oh, I haven't manifested anything and I'm doing all these things, when I really peel back what is the tangible things coming up, the energetic things coming up in their life, there is always a manifestation in there. They just haven't been able to clock it as a manifestation or recognize it as a manifestation. And that's why having an accountability buddy is so important, because a friend can point out, hey, wait a second, that was a manifestation. That was a beautiful moment to acknowledge, to celebrate. That was a win in your growth and your evolution. So be sure to take those moments of pause and celebrate those little joys, those little wins, because that helps your trust muscle in this process so much.
When people are on this process, they don't take the little wins enough. And that's the only way you're going to be the expander for yourself outside of your current state of being. It's the only way.
That is exactly it. What are all the little things? What are the kismet things that came through? What are the ways that you said no? What are the ways that you set a boundary? What are the ways that you have grown? Those are all part of the process. You have to honor those little moments as well, because they are showing you how resilient you are, how when you put your needs first and what your desires are, that you can be rewarded and you can feel that resilience and autonomy internally. All of those are part of the manifestation process.
Agreed. As we're talking on reflection, to have to walk through the literal shit in order to turn it into magic. I think about, I stopped being a doormat in dating because I was sick of my own bullshit. That it came to that point where I was like, someone give me the answer. I'm sick of this. I don't want to be in this pattern. Give me
pain.
It's pain. It's always pain. It's a transformation. And so I think it's just really important to name that and talk about that we're sitting here and we're saying the three of us are so motivated because, life is great and we know it can be better. But I know for myself, it's really important to say, I went through 5 years of infertility before Teddy could come. It's I was really, really, really broke for 10 years before I started to make anything that resembled something over $400 a week in money. So it's when you figure out that you are sick of your own bullshit, or you have to walk through the mud and the muck, whether it's being handed to you, you're being tested that way, whatever, and you unblock out of it, you expand out of it, and you begin to start to see some manifestations, and you're like, oh, that's my pattern. If I do this and this, good things happen. You are more motivated to keep going. So I just really want to say that, like, I got sick of my own bullshit, and that's why things changed. And I think probably the three of us sitting here, it's the same.
I remember in my marriage, I felt so trapped. Like I truly felt like I was in prison. And when I left, I was like, oh my God, the key to leave was in my pocket the whole damn time, because I had to face my martyr. And that was like, I think shifted everything for me, where I'm like, the key is always in the pocket. I'm always the one, just responsible for what's coming or not. And knowing that I have the key in my pocket to change everything and anything, it's at first that might feel overwhelming. And then it is like the most empowering thing to go, why am I stuck? Okay, there's no one else responsible for this dynamic but me. And then how do I get myself out? And it's doing that same work every time. And I know on the other side, I'm going to always be so much more happy and abundant and all the things.
Yeah. I really identify with you, Lacey, when you're like, oh, if we just did this, like we could fix this or upgrade it. And it's so funny because this past week I've been home going through all my childhood stuff. I had mood boards when I was like 8 years old. I was like, my husband will drive this car and we'll have this. Like, it was wild. It's just so funny seeing all of that stuff. Like, I had sketches of what my grandma could do for her interior design to make the house a little bit more light and airy. Like, it's just so funny what your child's brain does. But I was definitely always looking at, like, how do we fix this? How do we upgrade this? Like, how can I take sort of control here? And I think part of that is I didn't feel in control. So I was like, cool, let me figure out how to take control and make change myself. But then part of that helped me with resiliency. And then so in those moments and chapters of life where I did feel stuck, where I felt like, oh, I keep settling for the same dynamics, when you make that decision of like, whoa, I'm just getting caught in this loop. I have the choice here. Exactly what you said, Janelle. It's like, oh, right. I have the keys to the kingdom. Whatever I was so scared of happening by leaving this loop that was, not what I wanted, I felt so much more empowered. It was never as scary as I thought it was going to be. All my worst fears of it didn't even matter anymore. You're so relieved of that pressure. It's like you're in a pressure cooker almost before you have that tipping point.
Yeah, totally.
Well, lots to dive into for everyone here, but I think the main thing here and the summary of the episode is really start to take inventory. Where are you settling? Where are you holding on to things that aren't in alignment? It could be as big as a relationship that's not for you or a job that's not for you, and it could be as small as I spend too much time on my phone and I keep doing it and I can't get out of my own way to put my phone down. It could be something like that, or it could be like really wanting to get out in nature more, but you're not doing it. Where are the ways that you're doing that? What is the need that you're meeting by still doing it? How can you meet your own need? And then what is the root belief beneath that? And start to unblock. And that is going to be so key. And keep track of everything that comes through so you can build your trust muscle.
And just remember, your key out of this is in your pocket. You do those things. You got this. You're not alone. All of us have been through this, stuck in a bad pattern, a ridiculous pattern, a silly pattern, an embarrassing pattern. But I love that. That should be our quote. Your key was always in your pocket to get out. It's in your pocket.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
Yes, it is.
I hope you all enjoyed that episode as much as we did. And if you're starting to get a feel for this to be magnetic manifestation process, but aren't completely sold yet, let me point you to some of our free offerings. You can check out the expanded podcast episode called How to Manifest Anything You Desire, where Lacey, the founder, and I break down exactly what this process is all about. You can check out the Motivation, which is our testimonial library with thousands of testimonials of people who have manifested wild things using this process. Or you could check out our free quiz to find out what manifestation phase you were in, the rut, the rock bottom, the next level, or the magic dark, and how you can navigate. Enjoy! We'll see you next week.